Hello everyone, my name is Mrs. Sandra Onigbo and I'll be taking my class today on bacterial growth phase. I want to ask for pardon and permission because I'm using WPS Office for my submission. My Microsoft Word is expired and I'm not able to update it, so I had to use WPS. But as you can see, I followed all the instructions and it has the same background like the Microsoft Word. So please pardon me. Welcome to my class. Today I'll be talking about bacterial growth phase. Let's go straight into it. Okay, for the bacteria to grow, we all know as a microbiologist that bacteria grows in a closed system in four phases. We have the lag phase, the log phase, the stationary phase, and the death phase. So let's go straight into it. This is a pictorial presentation of what we'll be talking about today. As you can see, this is the lag phase from this graph. This is the beginning where the organism is trying to adapt to the environment. Then we have the log phase or the exponential phase. We have the stationary phase and we have the death phase. Let's move straight to the lag phase. The lag phase, what happens at this phase? At this phase, the organism is just inoculated into a broth. It's called an inoculum for microbiologists, you understand better. Once the organism is being inoculated, the organism does not grow at this phase. It's just trying to get adapted to the environment. It's beginning to make use of all the nutrients that have been provided in the broth to adjust to the environment. It begins to synthesize all the required materials that it would need to thrive in its new environment. There is no increase in size, there is no multiplication as should be at this stage. Now, this is a pictorial presentation of what I'm trying to talk about. This is where the organism is being inoculated into a petri dish. The organism at this point is not growing. Once it's placed into an incubator, it begins to adapt at lag phase before it moves to the log phase where it begins to thrive. At the log phase, the organism begins to double in number by binary fission, as you can see. When what I mean by binary fission is that 2 becomes 4, 4 becomes 8, and like that. It grows exponentially in number. The organism makes use of all the nutrients that are in the petri dish, that are in the media that is being provided for it. It's at this point it's metabolically active at its high rate. All the required nutrients that it needs to thrive is present, so it begins to grow very well. You can say here that the growth rate is dependent on the growth medium, that for this organism to thrive, all it needs will be present in the petri dish and at a very good temperature. For us microbiologists, we know that for organisms have different temperatures that they thrive in. For E. coli, we know that it grows at room temperature. So as a microbiologist, after you've inoculated the organism into your plate, you would set your incubator to at least 36 degrees centigrade, which is the required temperature for it to thrive. And at this temperature, it would begin to grow exponentially and at a good rate. Next, we'll be talking about the stationary phase. At the stationary phase, growth ceases, but cells remain metabolically active. What happens at this stage? The number of the cells that are being produced begin to equal the number of deaths. The amount of nutrients that are present at this stage is not adequate, but it's not all used up. It's just adequate for a little amount of organisms to thrive. So at this point, the organisms begin to struggle. It is also mentioned that at this point, organisms begin to produce antibiotics or toxins, if you might call them, to help kill off other organisms. This stage is popularly known as the survival of the fittest stage because at this point, organisms begin to fight for the required nutrients that are present in the media. They have a large population and the nutrients is running out. So at this point, they are all struggling to survive. The ones that are weak will definitely die off. Only the strong and the hale and hearty will thrive at this point. And finally, we have the death phase. At this phase, the bacteria begin to lose their ability to divide because there are no nutrients again present. We have a large number of dead cells here. When there is no source of food or livelihood, like we humans, of course, the organism is going to die. This is what happens here. And there is a large accumulation of antibiotics or toxins that they can no longer thrive at this point. All metabolic processes cease and the bacteria cell begins to die off. The bacterial growth experiences a sharp decline.